Well, good afternoon, folks. Good afternoon, or should I say good morning or good evening, depending where you are joining us from right now live. Thank you for joining us, folks. Thank you for tuning in for another episode of Conversations with Dune and Friends. My name is Dune Nguyen. I'm your host today, and every weekday on this lunch hour thing that we do here in Alberta, and certainly broadcast to the rest of the world there for you to enjoy now and later. Today we have a special guest joining us, but before we get into that introduction and everything else and invite our guests to join us on stage here, let me know if you can hear me nice and loud where you are. That would be great. Chime in and get your commenting kind of fingers ready there to interact with us through this hour of fun and insightful conversation, folks. So today we have our guest who's joining us from the beautiful British Columbia, our West Coast province there in Canada here. And we have Scott Armstrong joining us here. Let me do a quick introduction and we'll have Scott join us on stage here. So Scott Armstrong, what began by helping injured animals as an 8-year-old has led to the development of the entire Mind Switch program. Now, fresh out of university, Scott was sitting in a soulless desk and was deeply frustrated. And he knew there had to be more than just pushing paper. And that's when things changed. He decided to make his mind switch. 3 years later, Scott had created Canada's largest rehabilitation and education center for abandoned exotic animals. A lifelong dream come true. Now, as a result, an incredible myriad of wonderful creatures became part of his family, swimming with jaguars, and running with wolves, and playing in the snow with tigers, and helping an owl to take flight again. Scott wanted to help others feel the incredible satisfaction that comes pursuing life, and that one feels proud about and connected to. Over the past 20 years, Scott has have worked with over 1,200 businesses and individuals to help them create careers and lives that feel connected to. His work on 4 continents includes creating a microfinance program in Kenya, transition work for members of the Canadian military and Canadian Football League, and as a director of entrepreneurship and corporate training at the BCIT in Vancouver. He's the author of 3 books. At the age of 57, completed his 10th British Commando obstacle race, proving once again that men don't get smarter with age. Scott lives in the Pacific coast of British Columbia with his family, and when not working, he can be found at the volleyball court, skiing, or writing his latest novel. With that wonderful introduction, folks, please help me in joining and welcoming our guest, special guest all the way from beautiful British Columbia, Mr. Scott Armstrong. How are you doing today, my friend?
I am doing very well. Man, I just loved watching you do that. That was incredible, dude. Good to see you again.
Great to see you, my friend. All the way from West Coast BC there with a bit of suntan, perhaps. Are you working on your tan? Or?
I'd like to say that you caught me. I'm on Bear Mountain outside of Victoria, and today we're doing some hiking in the backwoods. So I'm working in the morning. And like many of us working from home, I hope you get out and enjoy yourself. So I'm going to head out after we're done and get a little bit of sunshine and maybe even a little bit of surf if we head to the West Coast.
Well, that's fantastic. Sounds like a great day to me. So you kind of half working and half playing and recreational and R&R.
Well, you like to think that it's play, but I do. My best thinking isn't really great thinking, so I'm going to be upfront on that. But I do my best thinking when I'm out and about. If I'm hiking or if I'm, last week I was on a motorbike ride. I do my best thinking there. I sort of get that higher level of thought. So I don't see it as pure play. I see it as a little bit of work play. So I hope you will allow me that.
There you go. Absolutely. That is smart, my friend. That is smart when we come to an age in our life where we realize that not everything is linear and not everything is black and white. There's a lot of gray in between. Some of the best value that we can create is from what is seemingly playful and seemingly restful.
Yes, and I noticed you were looking at your screen when you said gray in between, and I think you were commenting on my whiskers or your new bouffant that you've got going. Uh,
That's right. Uh, for me, it's more like brown in between because it's mostly gray now.
yeah, but
It's my COVID hair. We'll
you're
go with that.
okay. I'll go. Yeah, that sounds pretty good. But yeah, no, the idea of life going by so quickly, and since your introduction, I've actually aged a year, so I'm 58 now, and I was. I guess 16, 17 years ago, I started looking at people's performance and aging, particularly in the 40 plus market. And I
Mhm,
found out the midlife for an 80-year life, the way your brain processes time,
mhm.
what would you think? Halfway, where does your brain say, oh, we're halfway done? If you were to live 80 years, where do you think that midpoint would be?
Okay, this is a good thing. I've never thought about this before. So, if you live till 80 years old, your brain is telling you that it's kind of halfway there. Based on what I know here, I'm going to say 30.
You're on the right track here. And I don't use this too often because people say when I give you the answer, it's depressing, but I use it as invigorating because I know that time goes by so quickly. So let's not waste it.
Mhm.
So the actual time is 20.2 years of age is the
Wow.
halfway point. So, if all of us who are over 40 or 50, let's get on with what we really, really want to do. That's it. There's no more dress rehearsals going on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Cool. Well, I would love to hear a little bit more of a backstory beyond your intro, my friend. Tell
Yeah,
us whatever you like to kind of paint a picture of your journeys thus far, and then we'll
yeah,
get into specific stories and comments and questions and sharing
sure.
different things. But yeah, tell us just a broad intro.
Yeah, fair enough. Do we have access to any of those animal pics that I sent to you?
Absolutely, we have access to everything, my
Okay,
friend.
so if you want to pop one of those up, because that's sort of that was sort of my genesis moment to where
Hmm.
I'll use that word reborn. I started out of school, and I listened to a lot of podcasts. So guys, I started out as a banker. I wore the tie. I had the three-piece suit. Prime interest rate back then was 10%. Mortgages were 15, 17%. So how are you going to own a house? And
Hmm.
so what did I do? I left the bank and I started a wildlife sanctuary. And so the sanctuary's purpose was to take in abandoned exotic wildlife, people who mistakenly bought exotic animals for pets, or zoos who bred them and no longer wanted them. And it was just one of those pieces where I just took the full plunge. I had been working as a bartender and whistler after my banking days, another very great trajectory for a career path. And then I saved enough tip money to go to Hawaii. And sitting on top of Diamond Head Mountain, I said, if I could do anything that I want, that 20 something wish that we all have done, I actually did it. I said, I want to work with wildlife. I'd always loved animals of all kinds. My dad had to stop me from chasing a bear when I was 4 years old because I just wanted to cuddle it, kind of thing. Thank you, Dad. I appreciate that stop. And I came back to Toronto and where I was living at the time and looked for jobs that actually were about wildlife care. And of course, I found none. And so I did some volunteer work and learned how to care for animals, things like the tigers, the mountain lions, and those types of things. And thought, you know what? With my business background, I think I can create a sanctuary. And that was the start of the sanctuary. I have to tell you, the first month of the sanctuary revenue was $500, and my mortgage alone was $1,371. If you hold that picture up there, Amber was our very first guest at our sanctuary. She was seized in a downtown Toronto drug bust, and by the Humane Society, they didn't know what to do with her. So that was our purpose. And Amber came to us when she was 6 months old, and she and I went on to visit over 300 schools, seniors' homes, hospitals, throughout Southern Ontario. So wildlife was certainly a large part of my backstory there, Dune.
Wow, that is I can just imagine now. I have not seen you in action in those days that you're referring to, but I can just imagine being in the audience there with your visit. Now, did you say you visit some schools, and just what kind of establishment would you typically visit with your tour there?
Yeah, but this sanctuary was not a not-for-profit, and we never
Mhm.
made money. But we had to visit two or three schools every day,
Uh-huh.
and there would be, anywhere from 100 to 400, students in the gym. And I have to tell you, at that point, the worst thing that scared me in my life wasn't a 20-foot boa constrictor or a Siberian tiger on the loose. It actually was public speaking. And so,
Mhm.
even to get into this business, I had to I had to grow up.
Mhm.
I remember, the first speech was in front of 12 seniors. Half were deaf, half were blind, half were asleep, and I was still shaking like a leaf. I couldn't control the nerves. So, that was a cool thing. But school groups we'd visit, scouting groups, seniors' homes. We had a Burmese python named Julius Squeezer, and yeah, so we get people laughing about a snake, and the five seniors would come up and hold the snake, and I remember one time we were doing a presentation at a resort, and have you ever heard of the rocker? Well, you would have, Kim Mitchell.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely. Who
Yeah, so
hasn't?
Kim Mitchell came up to hold the snake and was holding the snake's tail. And one of the little known facts about pythons, big pythons, is they only go to the bathroom once a month. And
Hmm.
they give you about 10 seconds notice. So there we are. We have five people on stage. Kim Mitchell's holding the tail. I'm up at the head, and I could just see the snake was about to go to the bathroom. And so I'm running down the length of the snake going, no. And Kim Mitchell's sitting there going, yeah, this is cool. Spam. Just Kim was such a good sport about that. And we gave him about 14 free t-shirts so he could change into something clean. But anyways, yeah. So those are some of the groups that we visited, with the wildlife, and
Well,
also sick children's hospital was my favorite. We go to Blue Review Children's Hospital with terminally ill kids, and this would sort of be like their Make a Wish piece. They'd always wanted to meet. The picture you have up there now is an Arctic wolf named Yukon,
yeah.
who's actually with my little brother. This is a cool story to my little brother Sean. There, I was part of Big Brothers Big Sisters, and
Hmm.
he had helped out. Now Sean and I lost contact in 1992. His mom moved him away. It was before the internet, and Sean and I actually just reconnected last fall. Sean is now 38 years old, and
Wow.
he still has this picture in his
Mm.
thing. But working with animals brings out some of the best people have to offer.
I think many of our viewers right now who are watching live as well as later in the recorded version of the video here will probably agree with that. And many of our viewers who happen to be, in the music community, because that's a lot of folks that I sort of hang around with, when they watch this, they're going to say to themselves, it's an awesome story about Kim Mitchell, the rocker, famous guy, but they never would have expected that story would be about the snake and the 1 month sort of thing there, right?
Yeah, no, and when things like that they happen, with wildlife, the unexpected things just happen, and with snakes in particular, like I lost a 10-foot boa constrictor at a resort.
Hmm.
Boa constrictor's name was Chuckles, and I searched the van, I searched the whole resort, and Chuckles ended up being curled up on my engine block in my van. It took me about 8 hours to find them. So
Oh,
any of these
wow.
gray hairs, they were because I worked with wildlife,
There
not
you
because
go.
of people, but wildlife. Yeah.
Just like kids, they create mysteries for us to solve, right?
Yeah, and winding up the wildlife piece there, that the whole purpose was, I mean, we were offered the gig to work with Dances with Wolves with Kevin Costner to provide the wolves, and they're going to pay us $5,000 a day to provide two socks, who's the wolf in there. But to do that, they were going to have to spray paint the paws to make them two socks, and
Yeah,
that was enough for us to say
yeah.
no. We wouldn't do the commercial stuff. Ours was purely educational kinds of pieces, and that's what made it really yeah, just it was easy to get up in the morning, let's put it that way.
Yeah, sound like you have a very crystal clear focus of why you're doing it and what you will do and what you won't do.
Yes, and then in that case too, we didn't have kids at that point. My wife and so when kids came along, the crystal became clear because every time my little daughter Holly would, 1-year-old Holly would go by Amber, the mountain lion, all Amber could see was chicken McNugget, chicken McNugget, chicken McNugget, and so we I had a manager and I left the active part of the business and let the manager run. And the really cool thing, it's called Speaking of Wildlife.
Hmm.
It is still in operation. And that's 30 years later. And
Wow.
so, one of the things we talk about with Mind Switchers, my program, is you talk about legacies that you want to create while you're alive. And I was just, I never had that in mind. But knowing today that there's people who are still getting wildlife education because of something we did 3 decades ago, pretty cool.
Pretty cool. Hey, a friend and pretty loyal listener there, Michelle chimed in. She really enjoyed your story with Kim Mitchell and the snake in the 1 month interval there, my friend.
Thank you very much, Michelle. There's some other music stories too. So if we ever get a chance to catch up, musicians seem to be attracted to animals. So we met a lot of them along the ways there. So,
You
but
know, we're going to talk about music. We're going to talk about animals, and we're going to talk about business and growth. This is going to be a rocking show, my friend.
yeah, and I appreciate your time very much.
Yeah, I appreciate yours. So, tell us a bit more. When these days, I'm just going to go to the present day. We're going to go in the time machine and go back and a few decades and sort of back and forth there. But tell
Sure.
us what you're up to these days in the present day, my friend.
Yeah, present day is as a speaker and myself as a speaker, I do a lot of business consulting in the U.S. So since the wildlife days, I've done a lot of teaching, but I have clients. Unfortunately, yay
Mhm,
technology, I still have all my clients in the U.S.
mhm,
and so that's good. But the program that I'm most passionate about is the Mind Switch program that you alluded to, which is
mhm.
all about reinventing what retirement is. And so that's the piece that the wildlife plays so well into, because a lot of folks, when they're our age, you and I are similar age, and people can think of retirement anywhere, usually from 40 upwards. Um, they don't give themselves enough credit for what they're capable of doing.
Mhm.
They start listening to their body slowing down, and then there's aches and there's pains, and their ambition has really dwindled. And I'm going to ask you this question in a second, if I may. Most of the people that I know who've retired aren't necessarily, I mean, truly retired, aren't happy they did that. They're
Mm.
looking for stuff to do. They're golfing a lot. They might be shopping a lot, but there's a lack of personal identity that is accompanying their lives. And when you have personal identity, your physiological body responds, your energy responds, and you tend to be a little bit more vital. So in your friends, are there folks there who've retired really well and they're fully on, they're fully active, or there's some who are just sort of drifting?
I think we have a mix. I think we have a mix, and as you can imagine, as you might have alluded to, there's a lot of factors that goes into how that plays out, right? But I do agree with you. For myself, I don't have a retirement plan where I say I want to just sort of forget everything and just relax or go golfing or whatever, because I know that is our mind, right? If we don't use it, we lose it, right? And purpose is a powerful thing as well. So I don't even think about retirement. I just think about what's the best way for me to engage today, given where I'm at, right?
Yeah.
That's going to be different 10 years from now. And if I live beyond that, 10 years from then.
Yeah.
But really, that's how I feel about it as well.
Not if, when. When.
There
Okay.
you
Positive
go.
thinking there. Yeah.
Yeah. So the way and interestingly enough, I am one of the few that actually don't even take vacations. We just hang around the house. My wife is quite a homebody. She loves staying home. My
Yeah.
kids also love staying home. And so because of that, we don't plan vacations. We just make sure that every day is sort of the best it could be. And so we live it just for the moment rather than saying, I'm waiting for my vacation, right? I
Yes.
can't put up with my job. I'm going to wait for my vacation. To me, that's a little bit more stressful.
So if I show up at your house on a Monday morning, which is typically a bad day for everybody, it's a good time to go to your house, right? Because you're going to be thinking of it as a vacation or a happy day anyway.
I'm thinking of it just any other day.
Yeah,
During the week, the weekend and whatnot, it's just very fluid. Time is very fluid for me.
yeah,
I work sort of whenever, and I relax whenever. I have a lot of flexibility in my time,
yeah.
thankfully, with the job that I do. So because of that, I just sort of take the good with the bad. There'll be times where you're working, maybe hours that other people are not working, and there'll be times where you're
Yeah.
relaxing, where it's business hours, and so yeah, just take it all.
No, fair enough. And you alluded to that sort of mental sharpness as well. And, with the program, the Mind Switch program, there's a huge component and a lot of research that's been done on the physiology, the importance of keeping yourself healthy and active through all the years that they say, however, you take care of yourself in the 40s. And for Michelle and the other guests we have, there's usually a 20-year lag. So if I take a look at somebody in their 40s, I can generally predict how they're going to be in their 60s.
Mm,
And if we start assuming that every soar means slow down. Our
mm,
bodies are in control. We let our mind doesn't take control of what we do anymore. And so, the oldest man to complete the Ironman triathlon in Kona, Hawaii, isn't 54, isn't 64, isn't 74. He's 84 years old.
mhm,
And so we are still capable of an awful lot. The hard part is for the first 40 years of our lives, we have
mhm,
all the chemicals saying we can do that. And as our
mhm,
bodies change, we have to go from what we call chemical dependency to mental dependency to get out and do things. And I think in your introduction there, you mentioned something about a British commando obstacle course.
mhm,
It's called the Tough Mudder, and every year, except for this year because it's shut down,
mhm,
we have a group. We're all over 50. It's a
mhm.
19-kilometer course where you're going in ice water. You can shock yourself. You can do all kinds of really stupid things. And you said, I don't get smarter with age. I don't, but
Mhm.
I don't let my body changing slow me down an awful lot.
Yeah.
And I think when you do that, you keep your mental sharpness as well. And that's what I'm really saying is it's good to keep mentally sharp, but if you're not keeping the body sharp, the oxygenation in your blood and all those things going, you're missing part of the benefits that they're for you.
You bet. It's got to be a full system kind of, and I think from what you said, the words full system integration, if you will, comes to mind, and also the idea of momentum. You have to keep the momentum going, right? I
Mhm.
mean, if you start feeling the pain and then you stop the momentum, well, we know when a car is stopped, it's hard to get it going again in terms of if you're trying to push it up the hill or whatever.
Yeah,
But once it start rolling, it's hard to even stop it, right? So we
yeah.
have to make sure momentum is on our side, I guess.
And one of the cool ways to do that is I strongly believe in something called the power of your posse, or the
Mm,
power of five. That if you take a look at the five people that you hang around with the most, who influence you the most, and I'm primarily talking about your peer group and your energy group, your age group, excuse me, then you can see that you're probably the average of that. And
mhm.
and so there's a course actually in the Saskatchewan University of Saskatchewan syllabus, and it's on how to perform a friendectomy, how to get rid of dead weight friends who aren't doing anything anymore. That, yeah, you share history together, but you go on holiday and all they want to do is sit on the beach and drink wine and read a book. And hey, that's great, if that's your thing. But if you want to tap into what your body's capable of, you got to be around folks who are, actually, pushing their boundaries a little bit. And whether that be intellectually, career wise, or passion project wise, or physically, I think it's a really good thing for us all to take a look at who is our major influence, who are they, and are they still, drive and alive kind of people.
Hmm. Now, I'm going to bring up your website here, and maybe you take us for a kind of a quick run through of what you might find, what people might find on your website out there, my friend. And here it is. And tell us a bit about what's on here.
Yeah, so Mind Switch, and I always listen to these, and I hear people get really excited when they talk about their programs.
Mm,
Simply, guys, what I do is I help to refire your imagination. So I do work with the Canadian military, with the guys and gals, the servicemen and servicewomen who are retiring,
hmm,
who are coming from a very identity heavy place where they've been career soldiers all their lives, and now they're out of the military, and
hmm,
now what do they do? And so a lot of them go, well, I'll become a security officer at a firm, because that kind of job is really close to what they've always done. And so my job is to help break that up so they can see what's possible for them. And
Mhm.
so I do that with the military. Right now, actually, it's a really timely piece. Is I do that with the CFL, the Canadian Football League. I run an academy for players to help them transition for life after football. And as we speak right now, the federal government is negotiating with the CFL to see if there's going to be a season this year. I can tell you, if there's no season at all this year, a lot of players, because the average lifespan of a professional football player is something along the lines of 4.1 years.
Mhm.
A lot of players are going to be migrating out of football because they've got to still feed their families.
Mhm.
And so now they too, they're a professional athlete. They all think about going into training at a gym and those kinds of things, or working for a football club. But there's so many more opportunities. So Mind Switch is really about taking a step back. Let's say you're Dune and you're 57. You've got this great, podcast, the webcast show going on here, and getting to understand how do you view, or do you even think about
Mhm.
retirement?
Mhm.
Because retirement was all, it was set up by Otto von Bismarck back in the 1890s, when not many people lived to be 65.
Mhm.
It was for the 2 or 3% that did. And now we've got the average lifespan of a, Canadian male or female somewhere in the early mid 80s.
Mhm.
So, that's 20 years. That's, a quarter of your life that you've still got in front of you. And do you remember Dune in the 80s and 90s? There's used to be something called Freedom 55 by
Oh,
London by
yes.
Financial. Yeah. So 55, walk out of your job. You have the life before you. And they'd have pictures of the yachts and
Yeah.
all these cool things. And what a bunch of malarkey,
Mhm.
because you can have all the monetary assets you want, but I got to tell you, some of the most miserable people I know are
Mhm.
people who haven't worked for a while, have all the money in the world, and they do not know what to do with themselves. There's no
Mhm.
identity. So
Mhm.
Mind Switch is all about saying, Dune,
Mhm.
57 years old, here's his history. What's his mindset? What can we craft for Dune going
Mhm.
forward, as you say, for the next 5 or 10 years? Because by then maybe you'll change your perspective and your values.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool. Very cool.
I hope that's not too much information, but
No,
that's
that's
sort of
all
that line.
great. Michelle is loving your. I think you said a different word. I think you said malarkey, but you know what Michelle heard was crock. There's a gap between what you
Yeah.
say and what we hear.
So I hope, Michelle, I can use that one, because that's more accurately what I meant to say.
There you go. She heard you. She heard what you meant and not what you
Yeah.
said. You said malarkey,
Yeah.
but you
Oh,
meant.
I've got a couple of friends from my post-secondary education days who've just retired, and they don't even want to think about planning anything, because when you retire, you're often burnt out. And I'm talking about people who might have been in their careers for 20, 30 years, and they're known as the accountant, the professor, the administrator, the general manager, whatever it is.
Mhm.
And I just want to relax. And usually 3 months,
Mhm.
all of a sudden then atrophy starts to kick in
Mhm.
terms of what's going on up here, and certainly around the body.
Mhm.
Because if your body isn't under some sort of level of stress, a healthy
Mhm.
level of stress, it starts to die. Stress is a good thing in small amounts.
Mhm.
And that's why you need to hang around people who are going, like, you mentioned, I wrote a couple books. Well, this week, Netflix
Mhm.
Netflix is taking screenplay submissions for Canadian content. They want to spend $44 million on Canadian content. And
Mhm.
so, I wrote a book in 2015, and I'm writing a screenplay for True Cost.
Mhm.
And, people go, why would you do that? You're never going to get that. And, chances are that's probably true.
Mhm.
But I'm taking swings at things that really interest me.
Yeah.
It's not a monetary thing. It's just a passion. I can get up every morning and I can write, and I am a happy, happy camper.
Mhm.
So I think we all have to plug into what is it, or find it and plug into what really makes you happy on a daily basis.
Mhm. You bet.
Can you tell I'm a little bit passionate about this?
I can tell, my friend. I can tell.
I hope
Um,
it's,
yeah, I'm going to feature your website and maybe just talk about it a little bit while I'm just off
yeah,
camera here, my friend.
yeah.
Let's go ahead and
Yeah, yeah. So
yeah.
mine's for business owners. Again, because I do a lot of consulting with businesses. They don't often have an exit strategy, and the reason they don't have an exit strategy, business owners, is because their identity is so wrapped up in what their business is. And
Mhm.
so if you're a business owner, chances are you need another passion project to get out. So we need to make sure you have that. Mind
Mhm.
switch life transitions are things that we were just talking about. How do you go? And I strongly advise that if you have a target date of 60 or 55, where you go, you know what, I think I can retire then.
Mhm.
Start now thinking about what that next year after retirement looks like, because you can only travel so much, you can only golf so much, you can only shop so much. Your life, you'll have your life if it still has meaning
Mhm.
and still has purpose, and if you're needed, especially for guys.
Yeah.
Guys go guys go alpha wolf on us. They go find their den and they hide. And that's, as good as it feels for a while, it's physiologically not a cool thing for us. And then the
Mhm.
last one you had there, the third program, is Mind Switch for Rockstar Performance, and that's for teams in
Mhm.
terms of how you phrase things, and do you put positivity or negativity into your thoughts? Are you a growth mindset or you a fixed mindset? And some of the key areas on that. So really, I work with business owners, I work with teams, and I obviously have a real big passion for working with folks like Dune,
Mhm.
or anybody who's looking to create that next phase of life that's just sort of like, really, I can do that, and go, yeah, here's the plan, let's work it out.
Mhm. Wonderful. So mind switch again, focus on really meaningful opportunities for life focusing and life transitions and life enrichment, really.
Yeah, and when you take a look at most people, I mean, I think the average today, they say, is the average person gets exposed to around 15,000 marketing messages a day. So I,
Hmm.
I view us as like a relentless boxer. We're always knocking away the next message coming at us, and as a result of that, we're very reactive. We're very good at being reactive. What we're not as good at is
Hmm.
being proactive to choose our own path,
Hmm.
and our own needs. We're always being told what we want,
Hmm.
and it's hard to sometimes find your own voice.
Yeah, yeah. So pause and do the deep thinking and do the life design for yourself.
Yeah, I think you had a picture of me on a motorcycle up there a little while ago, and late in June this year, five guys and I, we went on a tour of BC. Yes, we were allowed to do that. It was COVID okay, and we were camping. But I sit on my motorbike a lot of the time, and I recline, and I'll just have a scratch pad, and that's where I'll do that deep thinking kinds of pieces. When you're out of the home, you're out. Yeah, there it is. Isn't that a kind of a cool thing? Now that's actually just outside Port Renfrew, if anybody knows the coast of BC, between Souk and Port Renfrew. And
Hmm.
I will just sit. I know it's just looking a little too Hollywoodish on that, but that's
Hmm.
that's my office.
Yeah,
You want me to get a good idea for you to, that's where I do it. It's not sitting in a room. I'm an outdoors kind of guy.
yeah,
And so, I think that's when you talk about you don't have vacations. I have a feeling that you have your own inspirational places, where you can find those kinds of thoughts. And I think everybody needs to know where they are
yeah.
for
You bet.
themselves.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Now Michelle chimed in again and says she loves your office space. Great office space.
Well,
You
the other
know.
one, so I was going to say the other one, Michelle, that is always at the top of. It used to be, Whistler Mountain or Sun Peaks, where I'll just go up and I'll take my laptop in a backpack, and on a nice sunny day, not a -40 day, that's where I
Mhm.
do a lot of my business plans. The big strategic thinking, not the operational plan, but the big strategic stuff. And I think all of us should look at our own careers, our own lives as, Dune Inc., Michelle Inc., Larissa Inc., because you need to have those plans. The great words I always love is, if you don't make any plans, you're surely going to get there, kind of thing. So we want to make sure we get to where we want to go, because when I did go to seniors' homes with the snake a little while ago, Julius Squeezer, and they're hanging out the snake. The thing I asked seniors, if you could give me a piece of advice, and they're all 80, 90 years of age, and so they've had been through things that I hadn't experienced, and they said two things. One, laugh more than you ever think you want to. Just keep laughing. And I
Mhm.
love that. But two, they said, it's going to be over before you know it, this life. They said, I look at my body, I see 80. In my head, I'm still 30.
Mhm.
And that's the real difference, is that our physical age, often, that's what we live by, instead of keeping our mental age young. And I remember having an aunt in California. Oh, she was a crazy lady, 78, crazy, but I mean, in terms of spirit. And she'd outlived two husbands, and she was on hunt for the third. And she said, you know what's really a challenge, Scott? And I'm all 45 at the time. She goes, is finding a guy my age who still wants to have lots of sex. And until their 90th birthday, she just had the twinkle in her eye, and
Yeah.
could make you smile.
Mhm.
Wasn't afraid of life,
Yeah.
was embracing that. So I hope that's okay to say, but it's that
No,
kind
it's
of
all
spirit.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to underscore what I'm hearing from you. And again, that's the idea of make sure you have an integrated life, that you don't have a compartmentalized life so much that you think work is work and there's not any fun to be had in it, not any sort of creativity and things like that. And then go to maybe enjoy your kind of time off and don't let any quote unquote work thoughts enter your mind. You really embrace the integrated being through your kind of life cycle. There is what I'm hearing.
Yeah. And if you're not finding joy in your life, in your career, excuse me, just in your career,
Mm-hmm.
then I would even suggest this: you're in the wrong career.
Mm-hmm.
If midlife and the way your brain processes time is 20.2 years of age, and you're 40, between 40 and 60, you're not enjoying what you do. Since when did you get so rich that you could throw away the biggest asset you have, which is time on this planet, for
Mm-hmm.
doing stuff that you don't enjoy?
Mm-hmm.
And some people go, oh, that's airy fairy thinking. No, not everybody can play with tigers, Scott.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Your video have just froze.
That
Oh, your video and audio is sort of.
you got into maybe into a family, and you have to raise kids, and you've got responsibilities. And then you think about the legacy you're leaving those kids by the way you're living your life. They come see you come home from work. You're not happy necessarily with it. You're always tired or whatever it is. There just isn't the luxury of time.
Mhm.
And you and I are both in that place. I mean, Dune, how long ago did it seem when you were 40 years of age? Does it seem like 17 years ago, or does it seem like more like 5 or 7 years ago?
Well, it depends on which day and which lens I look through. This morning, I was going to do a post on social media, and what was going through my mind was the idea of more than ever, for whatever reason, more than ever, I'm very conscious that we have limited time here on this planet. That just came up to me this morning. I'm in my
Yeah,
50s. I'm not 60
yeah.
yet, so I'm in my 50s, and that thought came up. And like we have limited time here, and
And that's a common thought these days with COVID, and we're all living ways that we never thought we would have to live. And it's giving people a pause for thought, that it's a gift.
Mhm.
Honestly, no matter what's going on in your life, this is a gift, and it does have an end date, and we
Mhm.
don't know what that end date is. And we've seen people say, once I retire, I'll start to enjoy life.
Mhm.
And I just go, oh, please, please, talk to me. Please, I want to help you with that type of thing. And you're right. Every day is a gift. And with COVID, um, and all the other tensions that are going on in the world, it's easy to get caught up in
Mhm.
all the intensity and fighting that's going on. I One of the high performance habits that we talk about and teach in the Mind Switch program is owning your own mindset. And one of the quick habits is, please don't listen to the news in the morning.
Mhm.
If you want to have a bad day,
Mhm.
listen to the news in the morning. Get your fill of all the murders and
Mhm.
pillaging and wars that's going on in the world. Really feed that empty brain of yours with all those positive images. And they call it CNN for a reason. Do you know what CNN stands for?
Mhm.
Constant negative news. And
Mhm.
and I think that whether it's CBC or whatever it is, if it bleeds, it leads. And
Mhm.
our brains are 7 times more attracted to negativity than positivity. So
Mhm.
it's easy to go for, but don't, take some time in the moment, as you probably do, set
Mhm.
intentions for the day. And,
Mhm.
just even little things one of the little things I do, you want to blow somebody's mind, and it
Mhm.
only costs you $10. Go,
Mhm.
go into the grocery line
Mhm.
and take a look at the person behind you.
Mhm.
And this is usually in the express line, and offer to buy the groceries.
Mhm.
You would not believe. everybody in the grocery store will stop when you say, "Listen, can I buy your groceries for you?"
Mhm.
The cashier will freeze up. Everyone will freeze up, and it's the sort of the random acts of kindness kind of piece. And I encourage everybody to try to do a random act of kindness every day.
Mhm.
It's not totally selfless. I feel great after I do those kinds of things, but
Mhm.
it just lets people know there's a lot more good in the world than we ever hear about. And I think we all know that. It's
Mhm.
just good to have those visual reminders of it as well.
Yeah, 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 yeah. I agree. I mean, our brain is very, very adaptable. I'm going to use that word. It's very adaptable.
Hmm.
If we feed it certain thing, it can work with it. If we feed it negativity, it's very good at working with it. If we feed
Oh,
it positivity, it's very good at working with it. So like here's this very powerful and capable, adaptable instrument or machine, and what do we feed it? So just be careful what we feed it, I guess, is what I'm hearing you say.
yeah. And the conscious brain, we control our thoughts, but most of our thoughts, the vast majority of them, are subconscious in your subconscious brain. And your subconscious brain is not judgmental. So if you get
Mm-hmm.
up in the morning, you watch a tragedy story on the on some news network, and you feel bad, the subconscious brain goes, "Oh, Dune wants to feel bad today. What else is in the world that I can make him feel bad? Because that's what he wants." And
Mm-hmm.
so, whatever you think about, it's physiologically and it's scientifically true. Your subconscious brain will try to manifest for you. That's why it's so important to really think about how you think. If you can control your thinking, oh, the
Yeah.
tasty world that opens up for you,
Hmm.
it's a good one. Yeah, and I
Wonderful.
know a lot of folks do that already.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, this is great. Tell us another story about either. You have your choice here. The next story is going to be either about animals,
Yeah,
rock stars, military
yeah,
personnel, or the military, our
yeah,
wonderful military service people,
yeah.
or at the CFL
Okay,
football. So pick a story for one of those four and
yeah.
roll with it, my friend. Do you have a
Well, the
story?
animal stories come easily, but let's go with the military story.
Hmm.
So, I visit the Canadian military bases, 10 of them once a year, to do these workshops, and I get to meet all kinds of guys and gals who've served over in the Middle East and Afghanistan. And one of the stories, the guy was telling me how he's on a high mountain pass in Afghanistan and the border control there. It was just unreal. But he said what the weirdest thing he ever was. He's a sailor. Don't
Hmm.
ask me why he was on a high pass in the Himalayas or in Afghanistan, because I don't know. He was a
Hmm.
sailor, and they're off the Somali coast.
Hmm.
And just like what was that Tom Hanks movie, Captain
Castaway.
Captain, the one where he was a captain of a freighter ship that was taken over by Somali terrorists. And it's Captain Phillips, I think, is what it was called.
Okay. Yeah.
And so, anyways, some Somali terrorists were attempting to rob this freighter, and the Canadian frigate this guy was on was called to rescue. And so they get there, but the Somali speedboat is faster, and they'll get to the Somali coast to escape before the Canadian frigate can catch up. So what they did was to stop them. Because they were a communications ship,
Hmm.
they put out a sonic blast
Hmm.
to the frigate and or to the Somali pirate ship, and it just made the ship go dead in the water. It fried all their electronics. It hurt the eardrums. All the crew was on there. And he
Hmm.
goes, we didn't have to fire a single bullet to take these guys in. It was
Hmm.
just a sonic blast.
Hmm.
And I guess the reason I'm telling this story is because that was normal life for a lot of people in the military. And
Hmm.
then they try to come back
Hmm.
into society where it's not everyday life and death,
Hmm.
and to readjust to what would be a normal lifestyle. I really had a deeper sense of empathy. If you could just imagine the last 3 decades, that was your life, being on deployment and doing those
Hmm.
kinds of things.
Hmm.
How does one actually get back into that normalcy? But the
Hmm.
reason I was so impressed was because they were able to throw their mind switch and sort of go, okay, military is part of my past. I honor that, but I've still got 2 or 3 decades in front of me, and I'm going to try to do something else. And I guess I really say that because that's probably the biggest mind switch that I've
Hmm.
ever heard, where life and death was for 3 decades a large part of their lives. And they were able to, do the mind switch and refocus on what was in front of them rather than having a rear view mirror that's too large.
Hmm.
So, very, very cool thing. Do I have time for one animal story too?
You have all kinds of time. We're going to run beyond the 1 hour, my friend, unless you have an important meeting to go to. I heard you're going to just go out and do some deep thinking. Let's have you do some deep thinking with us here while you're talking about that deep thinking. How's that? So
Okay,
we'll
yeah.
keep going, is what I'm saying.
Okay, so we can do that. So the mountain lion that you had up before, Amber, the mountain lion. There's just such a great story with that critter, and I wish for everybody to have and you probably already have it, a story that impacts your life so much. So Amber was seized in a downtown Toronto drug bust. Got her when she was 6 months old, and the day they brought her, the Humane Society, to
Is that her?
our sanctuary, she was terrified because she'd just been living in a meth house, a crack house for the first months of her life.
Mm-hmm.
So when she got out of the truck, she slipped out of the leash that the Humane Society person had her on, and
Mm-hmm.
she looked around, goes, "I'm free," and she booked it. She ran away. So
Mm-hmm.
I've just started this wildlife sanctuary, and all of a sudden I have a mountain lion on the loose, and there's no caging. And it's just about sunset. And so she heads to the tree line and she disappears. I'm going, oh my God, there's farms around here. There's kids around here. I'm having, that's where gray hairs started coming in.
Mm-hmm.
So what I did was I grabbed two pieces of chicken, and I went over to the forest edge there, and I sat down on my butt and in the hedges, and I sat there and I started making the sound, "Wah, wah," which is how a mountain lion can call to each other. And 15 minutes goes by, no mountain lion, no Amber. And I'm going, at this point, she could be in town right now visiting a senior's home without me being there. It wasn't a good thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't know this mountain lion either. So, she's frightened. The mountain lion can take a human apart, without too much difficulty. The 10 retractable claws, the big thing. So I can't stand up now because I've been sitting down so long, and I'm holding this chicken, and the sun's going down, and I look out about 4 feet in front of me, and right behind a fern,
Mm-hmm.
there's a mountain lion, and
Mm-hmm.
she's eye level with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see the canines hanging down, and I can see her looking at me. She's going, chicken or human? Chicken or human? And I'm really hoping that she's having chicken for dinner tonight. And so I took a piece of chicken and I just put it out, dropped it slowly halfway between, and she went down and started taking it. And you know what she started doing after that?
Mm.
She started purring.
Mm.
Mountain lions can actually purr like a house cat.
Mm.
And so she came over, she got the second piece of chicken. I put the leash back on her, and we just sat there for a while. And, since that time, Amber and I, like I said, we spent 5 years together, and we went all over, Ontario to hospitals. And I mentioned Make-A-Wish program. The story that finishes with Amber is the guy who helped me start the wildlife business was a resort owner. Named John, and he loved big cats. He just, every time we'd visit his resort to do an endangered species presentation, he loved it. Anyway, in the 4th year, found out that John had had a very serious stroke. Mm-hmm. And so he was in hospital in Peterborough, Ontario, and they didn't think he was going to make it because he just wasn't responding to things. The left face part of the body, they were, whatever side was sagging, and no speech or anything like that. And so we tried, I said, to his wife, would it be okay if I brought in Amber to a hospital? Mm-hmm. And you want to talk about a bureaucratic nightmare? Try taking a big mountain lion into a hospital. And the cool part was I had met the hospital administrator at a United Way fundraiser earlier that year, and we had helped out. So she knew me, she knew Amber, and she says, I can't authorize it, but I can make it happen. Mm-hmm. And so she set up a corner room in the hospital where we walked in the back door, and Amber came with me, and John's lying out on the stretcher, on a bed. And I just tapped the bed, and Amber popped up on the bed and laid down just like a house cat beside John. Mm-hmm. And I took his hand, which was just, really limp, and I put it underneath Amber's throat so that he could feel her purring. Mm-hmm. And the doctor said they've never seen anything quite that remarkable from a patient from a stroke recovering, that he started to try to smile, and his eyes, instead of being lifeless, became, enlightened type of thing. 2 months later, John had a good part of his speech back and left the hospital when they never thought he would.
Mm-hmm.
The power of being connected to something that moves you. In this case, for John, it was wildlife.
Mm-hmm.
Just stayed with me forever. That if you find out what moves you, you put it in your daily lives. Boy, you can make things happen. So
You got to kind of shock the system. If the system is on this sort of flatlining thing, you got to
yeah,
shock it out of it.
shock it out of it, and that's one way to do it. And I wasn't trying to shock John. I was trying to provide to something that he was deeply connected to, which was wildlife.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I think it's really important to know what you really care for.
Yeah.
So as you talked about, deep thinking today, that's going on. My deep thinking is right now is that I have to think about the Mind Switch programming, finishing off the online program, which is 90% done, because I'm getting a fair number of emails, people saying, Scott, I'd like to start working with Mind Switch. I got laid off with my work's changed. I'm working from home. So my deep thinking is making sure that I have all the what am I saying? I have all the foundational pieces to help people actually craft their own living legacies, which is what we call Mind Switch, because more and more people are recognizing, as you said, we're not here forever.
Mm-hmm.
When am I going to get started with the real important stuff? So that's deep thinking for me, and
Yeah.
I'm looking very much forward to this afternoon for that.
You bet. Wonderful. Hey, Michelle, I really enjoy the beautiful story of Amber and John there, my friend.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Michelle. So, as we sort of continue with more stories, you just sort of picked up a story about that aspect. I know it's fairly recent. How recent have you started working with the CFL? And do you have a story in that? Because we're going to have some CFL sort of fans and
Yeah.
football fans. They would love to hear a CFL fan. We heard a rock star music, Kim Mitchell story. We heard
Yeah.
Amber,
Yeah. Yeah.
so do you have a CFL story that you could share without getting into
Yeah,
trouble, my friend?
I hear you. I hear you on that one. Well, my friend and contact, the head of the CFLPA, is Brian Ramsey, and he's the one who's allowed me to develop this academy. And so I went to meet Brian one day, and he was the center for the Toronto Argonauts. So he's 6'9" and 280 pounds.
Wow.
I think I was looking at his belly button when we had the picture. Like I was putting my hand around his legs, because he's that much taller than me.
Uh,
But a very gentle bear. So the cool stories, with the CFL, is that the players who come into football are a full range. They're half American, they're half Canadian,
mm,
uh, but they all have, we have folks who have their masters, their PhDs, gone on
mhm,
to be doctors, etc. So, and we have a lot of folks who know nothing but football. And
mhm,
so one of the really cool stories is, and Liram certainly won't mind me saying this, Liram was the place kicker for the Hamilton Tiger Cats. And if you don't know football, he's the one who actually kicks the field goals and converts. So he's a
mhm,
kicker. And
mhm,
we created some apprenticeships, internships with some financial institutions in the Toronto area, and he took advantage of that, and did really well with that, and he ended up getting an offer for full-time work. Well, at the same time, his football career took off as well, and now he's been hired as a kicker in the NFL. And so
mhm,
the NFL, between the CFL and NFL, there's about a times 10 factor difference. So if you're making 90,000 in the CFL, you're making 900,000 in the
mhm,
NFL. So Liam, now has a career that when his football career does finish, he's good to go, but he's also making a lot more money than he ever expected to,
mhm,
playing football. But it was really great that he was prepared, for either aspect coming at. And I think that's the hardest thing with football players, and that's not telling a tale out of school, is that they think they're going to be, generally speaking, football players forever.
mhm,
And that everyone's going to care about them, and I think the thing that your audience members might be able to relate to is, they go, well, listen, everybody in Toronto knows me, I'm a football player, Vancouver or Edmonton.
mhm,
Once you stop playing
mhm,
football, 2 years later, nobody really knows who you are.
mhm,
And that's why I think, in all of our careers, and we have to keep making those positive impressions. We're all, but 6 months away from being replaceable.
mhm.
And that's why I really want you to do what you want to do.
Hmm.
Not get hung up in something that you just absolutely fell into and you just can't wait to get out of a little bit.
Yeah.
So CFL stories, I can't say a lot more now because the
Hmm.
negotiations are currently at this hour underway.
Hmm.
But I'm hoping for a very positive outcome so that the guys can get back on the field.
I must thank you for that story. That's a wonderful story. And, you know, I was just going to comment with your headset there, my friend. It's like CFL and Canadian military. That headset just fits right in, my friend.
Yeah,
You could be a helicopter pilot right now,
yeah, that's
virtual
right.
or otherwise.
It's a little bit old school, but you know what? I am a little bit old school, so that's okay.
Hey, I was
Yeah.
going to mention, so thank you for sharing that CFL story, and I'm going to go back a little bit. Tell us more about this thing called the quote unquote speaking work that you do. I met you through the Canadian Association of Professional Speakers,
Hmm.
CAPS. Tell us
Yeah.
about your journey in speaking. You alluded to earlier that when you first got into, you know, animal kind of rehabilitation and needing to speak, you were quite shy back then and didn't quite wasn't sure of yourself, but you had a long journey in speaking. Tell us about that.
You're very kind. Unsure of myself. I think I was wetting my pants when I had to do that the first time doing. Okay, so that's a little bit more than unsure.
Mhm,
But yeah, with the wildlife piece, I would be making 500 hour-long presentations a year, and
mhm,
with wildlife on stage. So I cut my teeth speaking. Not just remembering the content, but managing a snake, a tiger, an owl, whatever it was. So I have I really got good at self-monitoring. And it's funny because the first presentation I mentioned was a seniors home with 12 people.
mhm,
Um, Within 6 months later, I was speaking in front of 10,000 at the Sky Dome in Toronto for a spina bifida benefit conference.
mhm,
And so it just showed how, quickly, yeah, that when you're applied to something and you believe in it,
mhm,
you'll overcome those obstacles. So yeah, so that's where I cut my teeth. Certainly done a lot of corporate training since then, and the military training, and one of my favorite charities is Canadian Blood Services. I
mhm.
host their annual awards galas, each and every year. So that's where you and I met, was the Canadian speakers piece. So I am a business growth strategist
Mhm,
first who happens to speak
mhm,
occasionally. I'm a
mhm,
transition expert who happens to speak. I love speaking. I think it's a great way to get the message across. And I was one of the first ones actually to go online. I did my first webcast in 2009
mhm,
with BCIT, back when technology wasn't quite as savvy as this. We actually had a full studio with all the technicians and stuff running around. But I still love it, and I love. I like being online now, but I miss seeing the audience. I'm not sure if you do the same way. I miss seeing
Oh,
the responses
absolutely.
of the audience. It's just sort of like takes a lot of the joy out of it for me right now.
Mhm,
That's
absolutely.
honest. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So thank you for sharing that. And I'm glad you joined CAPS, and I'm glad that I met you there. And
Yeah.
yeah.
So do people know how you and I met? And it was 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago in Ottawa,
Mhm.
and the conference is done for the day, and this great kick-ass rock band comes on stage, and they're covering so many great stuffs. Well, who's the lead guitarist? Dune. Just causing everyone to have cardiac arrests because we just can't sit down because the music's so good. So
Yeah,
I have to thank you again for the great dance, and
yeah,
several since then. It's been
yeah,
great
yeah.
knowing you.
Yeah, I got to tell you this funny story that I share with my Facebook friends. Uh, uh, right after one of those, years, so we did it for 5 years, right? So
Yeah.
5 years. One of those years, I came off the stage, and a pretty respectable musician approached me right away and says, "Hey, Dune, you play like a rock star, but you look like an accountant." So my post out to my Facebook friends was, help me, friends. I want to, bring in this, make sure things, match, and I don't want this misalignment. So anybody have tips on how to play like an accountant? I was looking for help on that.
Oh man,
Yeah.
that picture that was just up on the screen there, where I'm in a lake.
Mhm.
And it's one of those pictures, messages. Just as we wrap up here, I love when people get into the uncomfort zones, when they do things that they're not comfortable with.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason that picture is so appropriate because I was in a glacial lake, Lake Kokanee out near Nelson, BC, where the water was like 50 degrees, Fahrenheit. And oh man, it just absolutely it freezes you down. But, for anybody who's listening to this, when's the last time you really did something that you were uncomfortable with, not unsafe, but just uncomfortable with, and really sort of push those boundaries? Because I really believe that nothing ever stays the same. And I think we all get that. Now, nothing stays the same. It either grows or it decays. And
Mm-hmm.
so if you know that you're not growing, you know what you're doing. And,
Mm-hmm.
it's that decay. So whether that's with your career, taking care of yourself physically, enjoying yourself, those are the incredible moments. I remember doing a Tough Mudder, and Tough Mudders, crawl through a lot of tubes, and one guy was stuck, and I reached down my hand, and somebody grabbed onto my leg so they could drop me into the tube to pull this guy up. I am claustrophobic, like big time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in the tube, and I'm going, I don't want to be here. And the guy and I'm holding up, he's a heavy dude. He's like 250 pounds, and thankfully someone was pushing him up the other end. But it happened, and ever since then, my claustrophobia has just sort of, there's something less to fear in life.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think when you confront those fears and you sort of take them on, makes a good story for a podcast. Makes a good
Mm-hmm.
story for a beer across, around the pool or something like that. But gives you confidence to even take, you don't want to climb a mountain in life. You want to take big steps every day, so that at the end of it, you've really done a whole bunch of ascending to things that you really wanted to get to. So just every day, something new and uncomfortable. Please don't ask me what's going to be new and uncomfortable for me today, because I haven't found it yet. I maybe, when I'm out this afternoon hiking, I'll find it.
There you go. There you go. Now, my friend, I'm going to linger on a bit, if you don't mind. I have so much more to ask you. Are we okay for time?
We're okay. For you, it's okay. I'm going to charge you half the rate that I normally charge.
There
Okay,
you
which is
go.
which is
Wonderful.
still zero, but it's all good.
Wonderful. And it's in Canadian, so that's nothing. CAD. So tell me, I'm just going to play with this idea here. When you think about working with endangered animals,
Hmm.
working with the military personnels, working with the CFL, working with business owners and corporate people, I want to hear two things from you, two kinds of things from you. One
Hmm.
is, what are the commonalities between those five things?
Yeah,
And then what are some key differences? So we'll start with commonalities. In
yeah,
all of those different things, can you draw out one or two or three commonalities between all those?
yeah. There's a reason I don't have $100 million in my bank account,
Hmm.
and that reason is money has never been the primary driver in my life.
Mm-hmm.
I like to help. So if you ask for the commonality, I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to help wildlife because they weren't being helped. I want to help military personnel because after 30 years of putting your life on the line, you might get $3,000 or $4,000 a month, plus all the PTSD and stuff that you have, and so it's helping. With the CFL as well. The guys, I think the average wage is $70,000 or $80,000 a year, and you come out with a broken body, and you have to, with no training on how to survive in the professional world. I had empathy for that because I played a lot of sports. So, I would suggest, helping. One of the things that we didn't talk about is, we do a lot of work with folks and orphans in Kenya and set up micro computer labs to teach skills. It's I like to help. I like to give. That doesn't mean that I don't keep something for myself. But anytime I've had a choice to make a lot of money and take a position that I wouldn't be happy in, I wouldn't feel was worthy of my biggest investment, which is my time. I've tended to pass on it. So
Mm-hmm.
certainly that would be it. The other one is I have to enjoy what I'm doing.
Mm-hmm.
I even when I got bitten, by the python one time because she thought my hand was a rat, you know, I, I, I was alive. I have a scar in my back here where I was down cleaning up Amber the mountain lion's cage, and she was in estrus or in heat.
Mm-hmm.
Was looking for a mate,
Mm-hmm.
and she decided I was going to be it.
Mm-hmm.
And so she sunk her tooth into my back and unzipped my back.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, I I felt fully alive with those events, and same with the with the military. Like, you don't pay me, I'll still go and do that stuff. I
Hmm.
still coach several Canadian military folks. No funds change hands. You've given this for the country,
Hmm.
for the world. I owe you something, and so it's really that sense of giving back. And both my parents really had strong sense of community and contribution, and yeah, I've just carried that on.
Hmm.
And so the other piece I was saying, I enjoy all those things. I like athletes. I love traveling to military bases, because every time you go there, it's just such a different world. I even got to go into a nuclear submarine, and
Hmm.
that is cool. And it had an active warhead on that. I'm not sure if I still glow in the dark or not. I don't have one of those
Well, let's zoom in and see.
radon
Let's zoom in
expected.
and see. Come close to the camera, my friend.
Um, so I have to enjoy. I get bored doing the same thing day in, day out, and that's why general office work, for me to have a position within a company,
Hmm.
is intellectually flattening for me.
Hmm.
I need to have lots of different tastes going on there. So there's two commonalities there.
Hmm.
I think part two to your question was
Yeah,
sort
the
of differences.
differences. Yeah.
Yeah. I couldn't do the wildlife thing today, I think, if I wanted,
Mm.
because to speak for 4 hours on stage and travel 200 kilometers day after day to
Hmm.
schools and back, and then care for the animals when you got home, I've got energy. I'm pretty good, but
Hmm.
that was a 25-year-old person's energy, 20
Yeah.
or 30-year-old person's energy doing that, and I took some pretty incredible risks.
Hmm.
I really can't, you know, God bless whatever spirit you believe in, whatever it is.
Hmm.
Somebody was watching out for me to make
Hmm.
sure that something permanently wrong did not happen.
Hmm.
So that is certainly a difference with the wildlife. The other thing with the wildlife is you couldn't do what I did back then.
Hmm.
You couldn't do it today. The schools don't have money.
Hmm.
The resorts that I went to are all now condominiums.
Hmm.
So it was a question I always say when people are starting a business. You have to look for the four M's, which is you got to have the market, you got to have the money, you've got to have the management skills, and then you've got to have the time when all three of those things coalesce together to form the moment.
Hmm.
And I have more skills now. I have some more money, but there's no market for it.
Hmm.
It's just a different world,
Hmm.
and so that's it. The CFL piece and the military piece have a strong online component,
Hmm.
so that people now can get their content asynchronously. So that's one of the differences I like, is that, and you probably the same way. I like working with people live, but I understand the value that I can still provide if it's in some sort of recorded device, whether it's a document or a video or a
Hmm.
podcast, something like that. So because I'm appreciating my own time more and more.
Hmm.
So that would certainly, be a difference. The other piece right now is I'm really focused on, and have been for a while, on a living legacy. What is that
Hmm.
defining moment that when I am nothing more than
Yeah.
the dust somebody's kicking up, and it's not from necessarily a selfish perspective. I just feel like anybody who's born has won the lottery.
Hmm. Yeah.
You're always talking, I want to win the lottery. I'm going, you're on this planet.
Hmm.
You've won the lottery.
Hmm.
There's, lots more entities that could have been created, but it was you who was chosen. So
Hmm.
whether that's simplistic or not, that's for the listeners to decide. But I feel like I've won the lottery, and I don't want to waste this gift. So
Hmm.
I feel that increasingly so.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing that. And I'm so happy to hear that you are very clear about how you basically live life along the way, having lots of fun and lots of excitement and lots of contribution and smile on your face. And knowing that money is necessary and making the appropriate money, but never focusing on it solely and never make it kind of be the biggest thing or whatever. And I'm also glad to hear that you have been able to earn enough money to now also not in your sort of older years to kind of say, well, I don't have any money to live on. Now I
Yeah.
gotta really do something to even just feed myself. So you kept it balanced enough that you now also have the flexibility, the continual flexibility to be able to serve where you think is necessary, whether or not you get paid or not.
Yeah, and you're right. It is a balance. Please do not think that I do not like getting a nice, healthy paycheck from a lot of clients. I do,
Hmm.
and I do pursue those. But I know some people who make all their decisions pretty much solely on how much they're going to get paid.
Hmm.
And I do turn down clients who are willing to pay me a fair bit of money. One, perhaps I don't believe in the business. So my wonderful wife Larissa is a vegan, and
Hmm.
I had a very large pork producer who wanted some professional sales training, which is one of the courses I provide.
Hmm.
And yeah, can't
Hmm.
do that. It's just it's not part of the makeup. So you have to make sure that the people that you choose to invite into your life, and believe it, you when you say yes to a contract, you are inviting them to share part of your value system. There has to be that alignment, and I think a lot of us would do better to maybe hold a little bit tighter rein
Hmm.
on making sure that we're okay with the people that we have, that the money, the paycheck doesn't I remember with the wildlife, and I never did this, but I was approached by one of the large cruise lines to go on and do some wildlife presentations, and it was enough money to float us for 2 or 3 years.
Hmm.
um, just like with the Dances with Wolves movie, I said no to, and I said no to this. I said that it's not
Hmm.
for the animals, it's not us, and it's good to be able to say no to the wrong source of money, for sure.
You bet. Well, wonderful. Well, thank you for sharing those sentiments. As we wrap up here, my friend,
Hmm.
I'm going to um, I'm going to do this. I'm going to have you take us out. Okay.
Oh, okay.
You could take 30 minutes to take us out. If you have lots more to share, feel free to keep on going. You could. So rather than me asking you more questions,
Hmm.
whatever you want to share, my friend, however you want to wrap this up, I'm happy. I'm a happy passenger to you driving us wherever you want to drive us.
Okay. Let's change the rhythm of our conversation. We talk fast, but we're listening usually isn't the same speed. So, as you think about your life going forward, think about all the cool things you've done. Give yourself due credit for all the amazing things you've done. And if you've had some slips along the way, like I have, allow yourself some forgiveness. In another few decades, we will be just memories of somebody, we hope. Okay, there's a lot of incredible dreams out here right now, and in a world of COVID and political and racial tension that is, unprecedented for most of us who are alive right now. Don't lose sight that time is still ticking away, and we can't sit on the sidelines for too long. So, if I was to ask you this question, if you could do any one thing, pursue it as a daily action, a daily project, a passion project, do you know what it would be, or what? And if you don't know what they would be, are you willing to take the time to actually sit down and give yourself some unplugged time, unplugged to be your brightest, give yourself some unplugged time to really find it out? I sit down with people, and if I ask them to turn off their computers and their phones, they start buzzing within 10, 15 seconds. I mean, the average attention span of a human being these days now is 8 seconds. A goldfish has 9, by the way. And the attention span of human beings in 1990 was around 15 seconds. So it becomes really tough to figure out what you want to do at the pace life is thrown at you. So Dune and his family of approaching every day to make the most has really got it nailed down. Take the time every day and figure out what it is you would actually like to do. Stephen Covey, way back in the 70s, and as soon as I say that name, people start rolling their eyes. Don't you have anything more current? Just because it's not today doesn't mean it's not relevant. And he had something called Q2 time. And what that means, which is really important for you, but not urgent. Okay, so if you can take the urgency out of something and think about what life would look like in 6 months, 12 months, 2 years for you, and work towards that, it's an amazing, comforting feeling because action towards that goal will alleviate anxiety that you're not doing anything. All right. So if you don't know, give yourself some Q2 time. Ask your friends who know you, what do you think, what do you think I'd be really good at? You've known me for a while. And it's amazing what friends can tell you about yourself that, maybe is falling under the radar for you. So find that piece. Take a moment or two and craft some steps that you can move towards this. Because if it's half life, if an 80-year life is 20.2 years of age and you're in 50 and 60, wow, finish line for a lot of us, all of us, a lot closer than we think. And again, the advice that the seniors have always given to me when I visit with the wildlife is don't wait to get your life started. It's over before a lot of people put the key in the ignition. We still have that opportunity. So take it, run with it, and then find friends who are doing the same. Maybe they're not in your social circles now, your work circles now. Maybe you need to find some new folks who are actually doing these kinds of things. And then maybe the final thing, just because a lot of my friends are doing this now, is they're holding up their monetary prowess as a holy altar of success. And if you're a good reader of human nature, that's probably just an imaging kind of thing. Don't hold money up as end all be all. When people come to retire, if you go to retirement seminars, they're 99% focused on the monetary attributes and very little on the self-identity. Your self-identity and what you think up here is what's going to drive you forward to the things that are awaiting you. It's not going to be the number of digits in your bank account. Yeah, we got to eat, we got to live. There's a great program, by the way, if you've never used it before. It's called Enriched Academy. It talks about financial literacy and what we truly need to survive these years that are before you. So yes, be financially literate, but don't let your retirement planning or your transition planning stop there. Think about what it truly is, because there's a lot of people watching you. If you've got kids, it's your kids. If you're in a partnership relationship, it's your partner. There's family members and their friends, and you have a choice to be an inspiration to them. That's an incredible honor. Okay? Be that inspiration. And if you ever feel like sharing something that you just say, I'm so proud I've done that because you got outside your comfort zone, okay, I'd love to hear from you. On behalf of Dune and Friends, I'm Scott Armstrong from Mind Switch. It's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. Have a great summer.